Intel CPUs have had so much negative publicity that basically nobody is buying them anymore. However, if you've seen my previous videos, first of all, you can fix even a lot of these with issues, and the issues are actually limited to some models, the i9s especially, and especially the K series. I have a video about it in case you want to check it out. But most important thing is there is a certain class of CPUs which has not been affected by this whole crashing issue. And that is locked i5s. So if you're buying a locked i5 nowadays, you can be pretty much rest assured there's going to be no issue whatsoever. My personal experience as somebody who sees a lot of computers every day is I've never seen a 12th, 13th or 14th gen i5 which is locked crash. And that's why today we are here with a budget build which pretty much anybody can build because it's all brand new components, and it's gonna come in right around the 1,000 euros mark, just a little bit over if you buy your stuff correctly, and it's gonna have insane gaming performance featuring the i5 14400F. Now the i5 12400F was pretty much everybody's favorite CPU for budget builds, okay? The 14th, I think, was a little bit underrated, mostly due to the lack of a big improvement over the 12th, but now that it has come down in price, it is a very, very good buy. Now with 10 cores, 16 threads, of which 6 are P cores, 4 are E cores, so it is basically a 612 plus 4 E cores. It is a very, very strong performance, especially since it clocks very high. So we are starting off with the CPU-Z benchmark, and now take a look at how good the score is already, okay? Crazy good. The motherboard I got for today's build is a Biostar B760 Silver. Now Biostar is actually a very, very good brand, but the problem is most people take a look at Biostar when they're buying a cheaper motherboard, and I've had them on the channel in the past too, and they're okay, but nothing crazy. But this, we are starting to get in the mid-range, and Biostar actually even makes high-end board with the Valkyria series. And this board is very, very good. It has all the features that most main brands will have. It has good heatsinks, also pretty heavy heatsinks, if I can say, and a very, very good design, in my opinion. And another very cool thing is I plugged this i5 14400F in it just to check without updating the BIOS first, which you need to do on every single other motherboard, because if you buy an older motherboard and you put on a new GPU, the PC is not going to turn on. And take a look at this CPU-Z. The BIOS revision is 2022, but you can see that we are running an i5 14400F. So I don't know what they've done to their BIOS, but it means it's pretty unlocked, and I love it. Now, since we're going with a less known brand for the motherboard, we are going with a less known brand for every single component of this computer. So we got some Kingbank RAM. Now Kingbank is a new player in the RAM and storage industry. Now if you know anything about RAM and storage, basically the manufacturer, so Kingbank or Team Group or whatever manufacturer may be, they just package the chips on the board. They don't make the DRAM chips, because DRAM chips are made by Hynix, Samsung, few others, Micron. So they're just packaging the RAM, making it cool, making it RGB. So you can't really go wrong. And now this kit is a pretty high frequency, over 6,000 megahertz, but I was able to enable it on this Biostar motherboard, locked motherboard, with a locked i5 on the first try. And it looks very good in my opinion. White, a lot of RGB on it. And that's why we went with Kingbank for their SSD as well. Gen 4 drive, comes with no heatsink, pretty unique packaging because it glows a bit, but anyways, we went ahead, mounted it under the integrated heatsink on the motherboard, and take a look, the motherboard also has integrated Wi-Fi antennas, but not Wi-Fi, so you can just put whatever Wi-Fi card you want. If you, for example, took one from an older notebook, I have a lot lying around, you can just put it in and add the Wi-Fi to the motherboard. Now the SSD, little disclaimer, performance-wise, it's very good in read, but in write, I think they could have done a bit better, but I got the 512GB version, so maybe if you buy a bigger version, it's gonna be better. Still, it's plenty fine for gaming. Now, we mentioned before that the i5 isn't hard to cool at all, but we still decided to go ahead and put a very good all-in-one water cooler on it. So I went with Endorfy for the cooler, case and power supply, and even some peripherals, which I'll show you guys later because they're very cheap and it's a new brand which is pushing a lot in Europe, especially if you're around here. And now, listen, the Navis, I've already made a build with the Navis, but this time it's the 280mm version because the case I picked, the Rhenium 400, it's a very good case which supports 280mm all-in-ones on the top without having issues with the motherboard, which is like insane that I still have to talk about this in 2024. But a lot of mainstream manufacturers are making cases, listing them as compatible with 280mm radiators, which, as you know, are a bit wider. And then if you go ahead and try to mount them, they're gonna interfere with your motherboard. So unless you build your PC with an expensive case and a cheap motherboard with no heatsinks, you won't be able to put in your all-in-one, which I find super annoying. Well, that was not the case with Endorfy, so I was able to slot everything in the case fine. Now, it doesn't have vertical mount support. Well, it kind of has it if you remove all the pins, but not out of the box. It's very spacious. You can put anything you want in it, especially the GPU, which we'll talk about in a second. It has a lot of SSD space. Cable management is very easy, and if you go full Endorfy, it has an integrated controller on the back where you can just plug everything. You can control the RGB both from the top and from your motherboard software, so it's pretty good. I also went with Endorfy with the Supremo power supply, different size, 650 watts, because if you're using an i5, okay, I'm gonna tell you a 4070 Super, which is our GPU, you're not gonna need a lot of power. But I went ahead and also used the Endorfy cable extension, which allow you to have the Gen 5 native cable, even though our GPU had a pretty cool white cable included. Speaking of which, I went with Manli today for our GPU because it was cheaper, yes. Now, Manli is a very good brand, and I've actually talked about them a lot in a dedicated video where I'm covering like all the off brands for GPUs. I made a whole series about it where I was like telling you which GPUs are Chinese and bad and which ones are Chinese but pretty good. Also because a lot of stuff is made in China either way, so you shouldn't really, be against it. But this one I think looks great, and Manli abandoned their green aesthetic, which I liked, but honestly white is a lot more marketable, and this Snow Fox, how they call it, is very good. I like the card. It looks like the MSI Slim versions. The PCB is pretty much unified with most brands. I also took some footage of GPU-Z for you guys in case you want to take a look, but it all checks out. It's a reputable card, and it actually performs better than some mainstream brands like some cheaper Asus boards. It's pretty good mid-size card, and it's, in my opinion, it's a very good value buy at the moment. So we've covered all the components and the PC has now been built. It's looking nice, it's pretty solid. But you're probably wondering, okay, but how does it perform in games? Well, first of all, let's take a look at the Firestrike. And look, it's very good. Like, goes to show that the RAM is good, CPU is well cooled, and the GPU, even though it's Manli, it's very good. You should definitely buy like less known stuff is the way to go, because if you buy less known stuff which is good, it's gonna go up in price in a few years and it's gonna become mainstream. If you buy it before it's mainstream, it's a good buy. And I think it's gonna be the case with Kingbank, with Endorfy, even Biostar. Biostar is already mainstream, but people buy it less, I think. And it's a good way to save money while still getting good value. Take a look at the BIOS in the Biostar motherboard. It's good. It even looks better than some Gigabyte motherboards, to be honest, which are a little bit ugly, no offense. But now, the gaming, okay? So I tested Apex Legends first of all, and this PC was just locking out 300 FPS all the time. Now, if you are liking the setup which you see while I'm playing, well, it's all Endorfy, because Endorfy is just making a lot of products, like a lot. So we have today full setup from Endorfy, and it's basically the mousepad, which is just a black mousepad, but it's thick and good material. Then we've got the Live Plus wireless mouse, which I'm liking a lot. So it has one single issue, which is basically it's a wireless mouse, which you have to use either a wire directly, or you can use a 2.4 wireless dongle, or even use it Bluetooth. Now, the cool thing is it has an included wireless charging dongle. So basically I can just rest it there and then play with it. And it's super light, but the only issue is sometimes when you take it off the dongle, it like lags for a few seconds, then you play with it and it's fine. So whatever, it's not a big deal, but it's nice to point it out. Then I've also got the THOC TKL keyboard, which is cool. So it has red switches, pretty normal red switched keyboard, but the backside is really cool. It's the same pattern that it's inside the case, so it's all matched in case you want to do a full Endorfy build. and it just looks pretty nice overall. So that's it about the peripherals. Again, the cool part is they're a lot cheaper than counterparts, while still being pretty good. But enough with the peripherals. Apex Legends was doing 300 FPS all the time. Crazy good, even in the 1% lows. Even while landing. Just, do you understand how good i5s are? And that very often you don't need an i7, and you definitely don't need an i9 for gaming unless you're, striving to get 360 Hz. And it's the same in Warzone. So in Warzone, we were actually very strongly GPU limited. So in Warzone, we did just a little bit under 200 FPS on average. Now, if we overclock everything, we can get 200 FPS on average, but the problem is, it's just the GPU working. This i5 can handle a 4080 Super, fine, if you're playing Warzone. And it's gonna be the same if you're playing at high resolution. Definitely buy this CPU. I think it's a very good buy at the moment. You can pair it with a cheap motherboard, and it's very easy to cool. Take a look at the temperatures. It was doing like 60 degrees under full load. Like, which CPU do you see doing that? Ryzen's do like 90 degrees. Okay, the new ones are a bit better, but still, they run a lot hotter than this i5. Locked i5s are very good. So with that said, this is the only Intel build you should build right now. But if you disagree with any of my choices in the components, let me know, and especially let me know if you would have done anything different to improve it, so people can read it and maybe decide better before making their purchase. And I also hope to see you guys again in another one of my videos if you like this one. And also, I do cool undervolting, overclocking guides on the channel. You may want to check those out. And yeah, maybe drop a like, subscribe to the channel. I don't know, maybe. Bye bye.